In 2003, the United States military embarked on a swift campaign in Iraq, swiftly toppling Saddam Hussein's regime. Despite being just 90 nautical miles from the U.S. mainland, remained untouched by similar interventions over the years. Historically significant as a Cold War focal point, even witnessing the brink of nuclear warfare, Cuba continues to defy expectations. Why did the U.S. readily invade Iraq while hesitating to do so against its neighboring island nation? The pivotal 1990 invasion of Kuwait by Iraq, aimed at controlling the oil-rich state, directly threatened U.S. interests, leading to the Gulf War in 1991. The swift defeat of Iraqi forces in Kuwait marked a fundamental shift in U.S. stance towards Iraq. Despite subsequent economic sanctions and military confrontations, Saddam Hussein retained influence, particularly in weapons development, sparking concerns for the U.S. With the rise of global terrorism post 9/11, President George W. Bush's administration intensified anti-terrorism efforts targeting so-called evil Axis nations. Iraq emerged as a primary objective. Although international skepticism persisted regarding Iraq's actual possession of weapons of mass destruction (WMDs), the U.S. government was resolute in using military force to eliminate this perceived threat. On March 20, 2003, without UN authorization, the U.S., alongside allies like the UK, launched a military operation against Iraq known as Operation Iraqi Freedom. This marked unprecedented military intervention in the Middle East. Utilizing superior military might and advanced technology, the U.S. swiftly dismantled Iraq's infrastructure and defenses. Within weeks, Saddam's regime was toppled and U.S. forces occupied key cities. The conflict extended beyond Saddam's demise, encountering persistent resistance from various factions and anti-American entities, leading to a chaotic situation in Iraq. Seeking to stabilize the region through reconstruction, the U.S. aimed to consolidate its position in the Middle East. Instead, it became ensnared in a quagmire, with significant financial and human costs tarnishing its international image. The legality of the war faced widespread doubt, and the prolonged military presence in Iraq elicited global opposition. Despite initial claims of finding WMDs, evidence proved elusive, casting shadows on the war's justification. The decision to invade Iraq was influenced by historical grievances against Saddam Hussein and strategic considerations to maintain global dominance. Ultimately, the U.S. intervention in Iraq stands as a complex chapter in modern military history, fraught with strategic miscalculations and lasting consequences. The intricate and protracted relationship between the United States and Cuba dates back to the late 19th century, when the U.S. triumphed in the Spanish-American War and seized Cuba from Spain, positioning this Caribbean island nation as a pivotal interest for American interests in the Western Hemisphere. Although nominally independent, Cuba's internal and foreign policy has long been subject to extensive U.S. intervention. American commercial interests flourished across the island, while the Cuban political landscape remained firmly under U.S. control. In 1959, however, this dynamic underwent a dramatic shift with the advent of the Cuban Revolution led by Fidel Castro. Following the ousting of pro-U.S. President Fulgencio Batista, Castro introduced land reforms, nationalized American assets, and implemented socialist policies. These actions swiftly estranged Cuba from the U.S., aligning it more closely with the Soviet Union during the height of the Cold War. As both superpowers engaged in global confrontation, Cuba's defection posed a significant challenge to U.S. hegemony, presenting a communist presence on its doorstep. Upon taking power, the U.S. government responded with swift and intense hostility. Early on, economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation were employed to coerce the new Cuban government into compliance. By 1960, the U.S. had fully cut off trade with Cuba and began supporting anti-Castro guerrillas within the country. The situation reached a climax in 1961 with the infamous Bay of Pigs invasion, orchestrated by the CIA, which aimed to topple Castro's regime through armed intervention. This operation, however, ended in failure, with the invading force being decisively defeated on Cuban beaches, solidifying Castro's rule. Despite the defeat at the Bay of Pigs, the U.S. did not relent in its efforts to undermine Cuba. In 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world perilously close to nuclear war. This crisis erupted when the Soviet Union stationed missiles in Cuba, prompting a U.S. demand for their removal, followed by global military buildup prepared to confront the Soviets. After tense negotiations and covert deals, the Soviets agreed to withdraw the missiles, with the U.S. committing not to invade Cuba and secretly removing its own missiles from Turkey. This crisis, though averted, marked a turning point, leading the U.S. still adopt a more cautious approach toward Cuba. Post-missile crisis, recognizing the high cost of direct military intervention, the U.S. shifted its focus to comprehensive economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation. These measures have stifled Cuba's economy and isolated it internationally and socially. So, despite enduring such pressure, Cuba has steadfastly resisted, maintaining its political stance without succumbing to U.S. demands. Beyond economic sanctions, the U.S. has pursued various indirect strategies to weaken the Cuban government's influence, including act assassination attempts, which have involved elaborate plots like poison-laced bullets and explosive devices but have failed to succeed.